I don't know what's going on, Tom. We're on. It didn't really work that well, but I'll get it done the next time.
It says we're live and
a work in progress.
Oh.
We're live here today. Anyways, I'm Susan McConnell, your LinkedIn for the Reserve champion. Thanks for joining. I host this conversation every Tuesday at 12 with different business owners on different topics to light up my network with actionable ways you can actually improve your business. And I always say, be fabulous today. So before I introduce my guest today, which is Tom Libby, my business partner, and we're going to have lots of fun, I'm going to put some things across here. Because if you have questions on lead generation, let us know. And if you're here, put thumbs up in the chat, because I have to put the chat over here. This is all complicated, these things. But my tip for today, and I'm not going to pull up the screen and show everybody, and if you have a question and you're not sure if it's your problem, then you can message me. So 3 or 4 people that I've been talking to over the last 3 or 4 days have their business page connected to a business page that has the name of their business, but no logo. But they tell me they're connected to their business page. And when we look it up, they're actually not. So sometimes people create 2 pages and adding in of logos gets a little complicated. Make sure your business page is the one with the logo, because the logo builds credibility. And that's what we're trying to do here. Right, Tom?
Absolutely.
So today, my guest is Tom Libby. Tom is my business partner. We've been in business for about 9 years.
We're in our 9th year right now.
We're in our 9th year. Thanks for correcting me. I'm going to show you Micah. Micah's on. Love Micah. Met Micah last 2 weeks ago. He's great. Glad you're here. Develop your lead gen questions. So Tom has been in sales and sales management for well more than maybe 20 years. Can I say that?
Yeah, I guess you can say that now.
All right. He's more on the management side, and I am more on the biz dev side. So that makes us what we used to call a 2-headed dragon. But today we're going to talk about lead gen and what I discovered when I was kind of researching lead gen, because Tom and I go from marketing lead gen to sales lead gen. There's 2 different types of lead gens. What do you think about that, Tom?
I mean, I definitely think it needs to be identified and recognized, right? So marketing handles lead gen one way, and sales kind of has a different way. But I do think that it's very valuable to know both and to kind of intertwine the 2 of them together. Because if you don't, then I think you have that's kind of where the silos end up staying, and people just don't realize that they should be working together instead of separate. So yeah, I think that there are definitely 2 different things, but you should be using them and leveraging them to work together.
Right. It's the truth. There's the marketing whole side, and then there's the sales side. But the problem is that when there is a problem, where do you go and how do you know what that problem is? So yeah. I think let's start in marketing and talk about a few of their problems, and then take it into sales and a few sales lead gen problems. If anybody's having problems with lead gen, stick a question in there. And good to see you, Richard. I'll be seeing you tomorrow. And I did read all of your stuff, by the way. We'll go over it. So when we talk about marketing, we're talking about if they say, I don't have enough leads, where do we go from there? Where do we start? What do you think?
For me, just saying I don't have enough leads isn't enough information to go by. I think the very first thing you need to do is identify what are you looking for in the sense of leads? Meaning, do you have a product that if you closed 1 deal a month that you're having the best year of your business's operation, or do you need 10 deals a month, or is it something like that you need by the masses, right? You need to sign deals, or you need to get new clients by volumes. I think once you answer that, then the question becomes a little bit easier to understand, because somebody who says I quote unquote I need more leads, but they really only need like 4 leads because they close at 25% of a closing ratio, and that 1 new client a month is going to crush their numbers for the year.
Right.
So I think that's number 1.
Correct. So that's on the sales side. We know how many sales we have to close. So we back it down to how many sales we have to close, how many people we have to meet with. how many leads do we actually, you know what I mean? So leads can
No,
be two different words.
I actually was still thinking on the marketing side, because from a
Yeah.
marketing perspective, what that does, identifying that question, what that does is really helps you hone in on your target market, right? So you're not sending out thousands and thousands of emails to get 5 leads. That's kind of where I was going with that. So for even from a marketing perspective, you still need to know that information, because I find it interesting that we use the word, ideal client very loosely, because I think there's even differences in that, where from a marketing perspective, I think you have typical clients and then you have ideal clients. I think those are two different things too that we need to identify, because a typical client usually is demographic driven, right? Typical clients are companies of this size and have this number of employees and have this amount of revenue and have this geographic location. That's all demographic information that could classify as typical. When you're talking about really ideal, you're really trying to get deeper into the buying personas, where you're saying, okay, so I have this typical client. Now I have to identify that the decision maker has only been there for 6 months, or has only been, like, there are other identifying factors. And then once you get all that, and you know how many leads you actually need, then you should start asking the questions about, I need more leads. Now you really have identified what that means.
Right. So now you know who they are. And you can also learn much more things about your ideal client too. I mean, you can go even deeper into the identifying them. But once you've identified all of that and you have them all, and then you've started your process, and then you say, I don't have enough leads. That's like, people have all these systems that they're already using, and they're saying, I'm not getting enough leads or enough people to meet. So when we start on the marketing side of that, I had to pull up an article on it just to give me a place to go. It was so weird that I did this, but it talks about going into search engine optimization and digital marketing and offline advertising to look at.
And again,
don't have enough leads.
I think they're right, or at least they could be. I think the other thing you need to dissect and answer before you answer that question, like, do I spend money on SEO? Do I spend money on ads? Do I spend money on click per pay? Pay per click. Sorry, there's a lot of those things that you can spend money on, but I think, again, if you take a step backwards and really dissect, where have your customers come from in the past? Have they always come through your website, so that SEO is going to be ultimately the most valuable direction? Or have they come through word of mouth? Should you spend money on developing new referral partners? I think, again, it's understanding that piece of it before you spend money on the marketing side of it.
Got it. So once you determine that you're getting them from one channel, let's just say referrals, but you're not getting as many, and yes, you do need to develop it. But that's my whole thing of, even small businesses have to have multiple ways to develop leads.
Definitely.
You can't just rely on LinkedIn, although I'd love to, right, Richard? But it's the truth. I don't even 100% rely on LinkedIn, but that's because I've been in sales for well over 25 years and I have referral partners. I am a referral person, but I have a mix of the different ways that I find leads. And I think a lot of small businesses I think a lot of people lean towards the referral thing because it's easy.
Yeah.
And it's comfortable and it's warm. But the other methods are, in this day and age, I think you got to have more than one. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to disagree with your own business partner, right? But the reality of it is, I do agree. So I agree with you. Of
course you do.
I agree with you 110%. I mean, I think the only challenge there in trying to have multiple channels for lead generation, especially from a marketing perspective, is you just got to be careful that you don't fall into that one-arm paper hanger situation where you are trying to do all of it, because then doing 3 or 4 or 5 different things really poorly is not as effective as doing 1 or 2 things really effectively well. So again, I think if you have a team, all the more the merrier. If you can identify 3 or 4 different channels of marketing that really drives lead generation for you, I say go for it. As long as you can do all of them well and give them enough attention and give them deserved attention, so that they can, you can, really drive and quantify them, right? So you can, if you have a team of people doing this, you can really measure it and find out what's being effective and what's not, make changes and pivot and all these things that the marketing people talk about. Whereas again, if you're a one-arm paper hanger and you're running a solopreneurship or a consulting business of your own, you really just need to focus on the 1 or 2 channels that really drive business well for you. And if that happens to be referral partners, then you should have really good referral partners.
Exactly. What's pretty funny, Tom, is at the end of this article talks about you being being pulled away by other demands because you're obviously running your business, you're doing the consulting, you're doing this, and it says start by picking one pain point.
There you go. Yeah,
and there
exactly.
you go. So see, we did it.
So whoever wrote that article, I'm with you.
It should have been you. But then it talks about, systems too, systems to organize and manage your leads. And a lot of small businesses definitely don't have that. So what are your thoughts on that? Like the systems and scoring and things like that?
So again, to me, so much of this you could classify as vital because, and here's the other thing I find kind of fascinating about small business owners is just having a CRM is not enough. Like just saying, if you ask a small business owner, how do you manage your leads? And they say, well, I have a CRM. They're all in the CRM. And you go, that doesn't mean you're managing them. Do you actually have a process that drives them from point A to point B and all the way to the close? Do you have something in place? Is your CRM set up in a way that you can quickly go in there and identify where people are in your sales process or in your lead generation process? Correct. If you can't identify them quickly and know who needs what attention, then it's still not a process. It's just a placeholder. You're using your CRM as a basically as a database. It's just a data drop. It has nothing to do with an actual process. So I think processes, and Susan's known me a long time. So, and anybody else who's known me a long time, you'll hear me talk about processes. My processes have processes. It's bizarre, but it just happens where.
Well, we know that.
I think that everything that you can do systematically is just easier. It's easier to manage. It's easier to identify where problems are. So if you're looking at, getting somebody from a marketing qualified lead to a sales qualified lead, and they're just not happening, you can isolate that one part of your process and fix it. If you can't isolate the process, the steps in the process, then you don't know where you're haphazardly trying to fix a problem that you're not sure where the hole is. Correct. So so I'm definitely all for the processes, but again, it's not just about simply installing a CRM. It's making sure that CRM has a built-in process for you.
Yeah, so I'll just on a very high level, I'll tell you my process. If I meet somebody on LinkedIn, I meet them, we chat, and then we decide if we're going to meet, and then I send them a calendar invite. The calendar invite goes over to Sales Navigator. They stay in Sales Navigator till I actually meet with them. Once I meet with them, they go into my CRM and I track them from there. High level, that's a strategy, that's a process.
Absolutely right. Yes.
Right. So there you go. You don't put everybody that you're chatting with in LinkedIn in your CRM.
Right.
That's the way you have to think about this in buckets. And I have that bucket of people that I'm chatting with that I haven't set up also in there. So you can have different strategies in, your Sales Navigator as well, which I love Sales Navigator. I mean, I know it's expensive. LinkedIn should bring the price down.
They're never going to do that.
You didn't hear me say that, but more people can do it. It's a very expensive tool for small businesses. So that's that. And then as far as once we get to, I guess
so you asked me a 2-part question that last time, and I didn't get.
I know lead scoring or the
lead scoring. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I was just going to say, I find lead scoring extraordinarily valuable because it helps you prioritize, right? So if you get a good lead scoring system and it's in place and it's working properly, then your marketing, feeds your sales lead generation immediately. So you can identify the top 10% of your lead scores and hand them right over to your salespeople to start picking up the phone and calling them or emailing them directly or whatever your process starts at. But then but I definitely think lead scoring is a very valuable tool for people to use. Yes. But the lead scoring kind of falls in line with that lead generation process that I was talking about, right? So somebody comes in at the top of your funnel, their one score as they interact with your content or they interact, whatever your process is, their score goes up and then they come down the funnel a little bit. So matching your lead scoring to your process, to your lead generation processes, it can be really helpful.
Yeah. And then tracking your leads, use like, KPIs and things like that. Similar there. So, yeah, I don't typically do, well, I do a little bit of that, but like I said, on a very basic level, strategy, start there.
Yeah.
And then if that strategy is not working, you've got to find other ways to develop leads. So then I want to go into the sales side of this, because you take lead generation goes to, they get the lead to the sales side of this. And so the salesperson now has this lead and they have issues. So their issues are they're either calling, emailing, or trying to connect on LinkedIn with some of these people. And, they're, again, not getting through to people. And let's talk about that. Touches, number of touches, methods of touching. Because these are the problems that people have, is that they try it one way. So I emailed him 14 times and he didn't answer. I go, well, maybe he doesn't look at his email. Why don't you try connecting with him on LinkedIn? Oh, pick up the phone. Do you have his phone number? So
I don't think I need to say anything with this one. Keep going.
I know, it's true though. And sometimes I'm guilty of that too, because it's so easy just to send an email, but you actually have to have a process behind it, or at least understand the person. Well, first of all, it's one thing if you haven't met with them yet. It's another thing if you've met with them and the conversation went well and you have a next step.
Yeah.
And then they're dissing you.
Yeah, because that's a different challenge.
There's multiple challenges going on there.
Yeah, so that's two different challenges. One of the things, and again, I'd just like to reiterate, before you pick up the phone and before you start calling these people, and I know your marketing has given you this qualified lead, so to speak, but really, really make sure you know who you're calling into, because again, let's say your typical client is somebody who has you've identified the typical client based on the demographic information we said earlier today. But your ideal client is somebody who's been in the role for a minimum of 2 years, and marketing hands you over a lead with somebody who's in the role for 3 months. Like you have to be able to identify that and say, and push back a little bit to your marketing department and say, our ideal client, it's somebody with experience. They don't know what they don't know. And I'm not going to have the time to educate them, because if I call them and say, I know you need this, then you come across as somebody that they don't want to do business with, even if you're right. So I think that, really understanding the buying personas makes it a heck of a lot easier to make that phone call, number one. And number two, even if you have multiple buying personas within the same company, like let's say you're selling it to Fortune 500 companies, sometimes there's 3 or 4 different decision makers that could pull the trigger on your service or product, but you may have to sell to them differently. So the director of marketing is being sold to differently than a director of operations. The director of like a service manager or somebody who's in finance you need to talk to them differently than you do the marketing person or a sales director. So knowing who you're selling into makes a big difference, because if you're not calling them and solving a problem for them, they're not calling you back no matter what you're selling. You could have the best widget in the world. And I hate using the word widget, by the way, but you know what I mean? You can have the best product or service in the world and you could solve 1,000 problems for them. But if you're not conveying that well enough or in the manner in which they're going to be willing to accept it, then it's a moot point. They're not going to return your call either way.
So there you go. So in the first part of this article, it says prospects ignoring your calls. And one of the lines in this is, the most important first step is to call on people that you're confident that you can help.
Yeah. I should meet these people. I think I know them.
I think you should have written both of these articles. But it was great because it gave us a whole platform for our discussion, because like I said, lead generation can start at marketing and go all the way to close of sale. And yeah, I mean, if you're not confident that the person that you're talking to you can help, then just don't pick up the phone.
Yeah.
But then again, the number of touches, and I discussed this with Walter Crosby when I was on his podcast. When I was first started in sales, it was 3 touches maybe. I get them on the phone and they get an appointment, or I'd call them 5,000 times and they'd finally agree to meet, because they actually picked up the phone all 5,000 times and said, Susan, another month, Susan, another month.
Right.
But I didn't stop, but I got an appointment. But not anymore.
No.
You can't, it's touches of different magnitudes. Some people are phone, some people are email, some
Well,
people will talk to you on LinkedIn, and that's just.
And I think we have to give a little bit of credit to people that simply just get busy. I mean, if somebody calls me and leaves me a voicemail and I listen to that voicemail and go, oh shoot, I should probably call that person back. I think they could help me with X. And then I get distracted with 18 other things and I may forget. So if they don't make a follow-up phone call, I may not remember to ever call that person back. You know, like I think you're 100% right. But I think it's more, I think there's more to it. I think we have a lot of distractions today. Everybody that I know has a lot going on, not just in work, but personal and, whether it's personal, professional, family, friends, like there's so much going on and we're trying to balance so many things that you could simply just forget. Like you just simply, even if I intend to call somebody back who leaves me a voicemail, sometimes I just forget. So to your point, it's no longer one way, right? It's not unidirectional. Like you can't just keep, to your point earlier, you can't just keep making phone calls and leaving 8,000 voicemails because then you just become a nuisance. So you have to find multiple channels of communication. So maybe you leave them a voicemail one day and email, the day 2, maybe you reach out on LinkedIn day 3. But again, my favorite word, make sure you have a process built in to do this. And there's
the strategy piece of it, right?
Yeah. And there's a system in place where you know what your next step's going to be if they don't return your call or if they don't return your email. You already know what your next step's going to be.
It's the truth. And then I was talking with my chiropractor, which is kind of a cool conversation. And she sends out an email twice a year. And I said, oh, I got your email. And I said, why don't you send one out like every couple? I go, how many tips do you have to help people? She's like, a ton. I go, and I saw your email and I came in to see you. What does that tell you? I don't want to bother people. That's what people think. I don't want to bother people. But unfortunately, if someone needs what you have, they're going to see it on the day they need it. And so you kind of have to stay top of mind with them. And unfortunately, you're not bothering people because if they don't want to be bothered by you, they'll get rid of you. Believe me.
So I've been telling I've had a couple of conversations in the last 2 weeks too, that two phrases have come out pretty frequently. The more things change, the more things stay the same is one, where we've been talking about top of mind awareness for 30 years in sales, right? You always need to be on top of somebody's mind. And that hasn't changed. It's just the mannerisms and mechanisms that we use to do that today have just increased. So now you have multiple ways of doing that. And the other one is people buy from people that they know, like, and trust, but you have to build that knowledge of them for them to have knowledge of you. You have to build that trust. And then you can't get them to like you until you meet with them, but they still will buy from people they know, like, and trust. So you just got to, again, build that process to develop that relationship with them.
And so, I have to just put this in here, the know, like, and trust. Well, if they want to know you, you've got to fill out your LinkedIn profile. So many people don't fill it out. It drives me insane.
Yeah.
It's if I don't know who you are and how you can help me, then I'm not even going to stop to see if I could know, like, or even relate with you.
Yeah, so, we get like 1 to 3 seconds to make that impression on LinkedIn, right? So if your profile is not right, then it's not going to help. It's certainly
if I'm going to meet with someone, I Google them. What comes up first? Their LinkedIn profile. So it starts from the very beginning. Like you have to have everything done and filled out correctly, and you got to be prepared for 24 touches. Sometimes it takes 24 touches to reach somebody.
So I heard this. I don't remember where I found it. So please don't ask, and you don't have don't shoot me. Don't shoot me for not remembering. But I remember I read this article recently that said the average buyer takes 9 visions, nine pieces of information to remember one thing about you, and it takes them 3 things about you to actually buy from you. So think about that for a second. It takes them 9 opportunities of seeing your name, hearing your name, seeing your logo, seeing your brand 9 times for them to remember one thing about you. And it takes them 3 things to remember about you to buy. That's 27 touches.
Yeah.
So that number is going up more and more every year in year out, it goes up a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. So just don't give up on how to reach out to people and use as many facets as you can, use as many communication methods as you can.
Yeah, no, it's the truth. We take quite a few touches to get in touch with people. And then another bone of contention is people are spitting up how much they can do for you. I don't care what you can do for me. I care about problems that I have that you can solve. And if you can tell me a problem and how you solve it, then it might be my problem.
Yeah. Well,
And
that
people
goes
want
back
to
to
say,
what
I can 10x your leads, I can 20x your leads if you just meet with me today. Well, don't say that to me.
well, the other problem you have, what happens if you do actually 10x my leads and I can't call them all? 10x my leads isn't helpful if you don't,
Great. Great.
if I can't actually manage 10x leads, you know,
Right.
I could potentially only need an extra 5 leads a month, and those 5 leads a month would put my business on the next level.
Right.
If you don't know that information, then why are you reaching out to them?
Right. It's the truth. And that's why a lot of this, it's process and strategy. And then that all is about helping people. And if you put all of those things together, you'll have a great process and a great strategy, and you'll be able to help somebody, and you'll find people that you can actually help and not have horrible customers or horrible clients.
Yeah.
We've all had them.
Definitely.
Yeah. So this has been awesome. Richard gave us a question, but let's see. I think it's more of a process. He wants to know what platforms sync with LinkedIn, like Facebook and Instagram. And it's not, I don't know if he's talking about posts or if he's talking about they actually sync, and they don't.
Yeah. So LinkedIn doesn't actually sync with anything except Sales Navigator because it's proprietary.
If you're posting, and I don't know if
Yeah.
he's talking about, he might be talking about that.
I
But
was going to say,
you can schedule posts on Buffer and some of these other scheduling tools.
yeah.
But then here's my strategy about that is that there's different things you should be saying, I think, on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. And
I agree with that.
if you're doing the same thing on all three, you're missing the boat. And that's
I
hard.
agree with that. It is hard.
And that's where you need a marketing, expert or a sales expert to help you with that process.
Yeah.
Because what do we say, Tom? Do what you do best.
Outsource the rest.
Right. How long have we been saying that?
At least 8.5 years.
Right. It's the truth. So I think we can end it on that one. Do what you do best, outsource the rest. We'll say be fabulous today.
I always sign off my podcast by saying, keep selling.
Keep selling. Keep lead generation, and message Tom or I in our LinkedIn. We're both on LinkedIn, and we both did the same poll today. So that'll be truly interesting to see who gets more votes.
Oh yeah, because this is such a competition. I'm not worried about it.
Yeah. When it's done right, it's when it's fun. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not.
I get it.
But it's so funny. So, anyways, we'll end here today. Next week, I have Eileen Murdoch from Prairie Pro Development. She is the person you contact if you're a commercial property owner and you need work done. She kind of brings in all the different people. She's up in Canada, but she's amazing. She's been on LinkedIn. She's got an amazing strategy. She's got an amazing story. So she'll be here with me next week.
Awesome.
So we're going to end here, Tom, and goodbye, everybody. And we'll see you next week, next Tuesday at 12.
Thank you for having me.
More dangerous when we put dangerous back on where it's supposed to be. Bye, everybody.